Have you ever noticed that like constant chatter in your head? That voice that never seems to shut up?
You mean like replaying stuff that happened ages ago or, getting all caught up in what might happen tomorrow?
Exactly. And it's like barely ever just being in the moment. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like being stuck in this mental prison almost.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? You could be in like the most peaceful place imaginable, but your mind's still churning away this storm of like thoughts, worries, doubts, and, just endless inner arguments with yourself.
Oh, tell me about it. And the funny thing is, or well, not funny really, but the more you try to ignore it, the worse it seems to get.
It's true. The sources we've been looking at really emphasize that. And that's actually what we're going to tackle today, right?
Yep. We're going deep on how to quiet that mental noise because it's more than just annoying. It's a serious contributor to stress, anxiety, like proper mental exhaustion.
Oh, totally. You can be totally rested physically, but if your mind's been going nonstop since you woke up, you'll still feel completely drained.
Totally. Like trying to drive with 5 radio stations blasting at once. No way you can focus on the road. Right.
Right. And the thing is, you're not alone in this. It's a really common experience.
Thankfully, though, tons of people from ancient cultures to modern science, they've figured out ways to transform that chaos into like genuine inner peace. And that's exactly what we're exploring today.
Exactly. And the best part is you don't need to become some kind of monk or spend years meditating. There are simple techniques you can start using like right now to find that quiet.
So where do we even begin with all this?
Well, first we got to understand why our minds are so darn busy in the first place. Like, what's the deal with that? Our material points to evolution for some clues.
Okay, so like back in the day, our ancestors were constantly on edge. They had to be to survive, always watching out for danger, figuring out where to find food, basic survival stuff. Their minds were always analyzing, always planning.
Yeah, it was crucial for them, right? But fast forward to today, and that same survival mechanism, well, it's not always so helpful anymore.
Right? Most of us aren't facing down saber-toothed tigers on our way to work.
Exactly. But our brains haven't quite gotten the memo. They're still looking for problems to solve, even when there aren't any. It's like our brains are wired to create scenarios, replay the past, worry about the future, and it just never stops.
So we end up feeling trapped, constantly bombarded by thoughts.
Exactly. One of the sources uses this great analogy of a lake. When the wind is whipping across the water, the surface gets all choppy and the reflection is totally distorted. But when the wind dies down, the water becomes still, like a perfect mirror.
I get it. Like when our minds are racing, our perspective gets all messed up. Tiny problems seem huge. Simple decisions feel impossible. And we just end up stressed out.
Yeah, and that stress isn't just in our heads either, right?
Definitely not. This overthinking can drain your energy, mess with your sleep, make you tense, and even lead to physical problems.
Right. And don't forget about how it affects us emotionally. It fuels anxiety, makes it hard to focus, and it basically robs us of enjoying the present moment.
It's interesting, though, this constant overthinking, it's not actually how we're wired naturally. It's more like a habit we pick up over time. Think about little kids. They're so present. They're not stuck in their heads all the time.
That's a great point. As we grow up, we kind of get trained to think constantly, always analyzing, always planning, even when we don't need to. And that's how this mental noise takes root.
The good news is we can break that habit, right?
Absolutely. Just like we unintentionally trained ourselves to overthink, we can retrain our minds to find stillness. And it's not about fighting those thoughts. It's about learning to observe them and create space for quiet.
Okay, so how do we actually do that?
Well, one of the first techniques we came across is super simple, but really powerful. It's called conscious breathing.
Conscious breathing. Okay, so we don't usually think about it, but there's this deep link between how we breathe and how we feel. When we're anxious, our breath gets all shallow and quick, but when we're relaxed, it's slower and deeper.
Exactly. And here's the cool part. It works both ways. While our mental state affects our breathing, we can actually use our breath to change how we feel. And that's what conscious breathing is all about.
So one of the sources gives this simple exercise. You breathe in deeply through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4, then slowly exhale through your mouth for 8. Listener, why don't you try it with us right now? Breathe in, hold, and exhale.
You might notice that even after just one breath, your thoughts slow down a bit, your body relaxes, and you feel a little bit calmer.
It's not just a feeling. Conscious breathing actually triggers physical changes in our bodies.
Right. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is like our built-in relaxation response. It also lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, and just creates a sense of calm.
And it's interesting how this connects to ancient practices too. Like in yoga, they use pranayama, which are breathing exercises, to reach deep states of meditation. So by regulating our breath, we're not just quieting the mind, we're potentially expanding our awareness and connecting more deeply to the present.
That's right. So next time you feel your mind racing, just pause and pay attention to your breath. Don't worry about stopping your thoughts. Just focus on the air going in and out. With practice, this will become a natural reflex.
Okay, so that's conscious breathing. What's next?
The next technique is called the inversive question, and it's all about changing how we relate to our thoughts.
The inversive question. Go on.
Okay, so one of the sources points out that often the problem isn't the thoughts themselves, but the fact that we believe them without question. Our minds make up stories, and we get so caught up in them that we forget they're just stories.
Makes sense. So what's the inversive question all about?
It's actually pretty simple. Whenever a thought pops up that's bothering you, instead of just accepting it as truth, you ask yourself, is this really true? For example, let's say you're thinking, I'm never going to be able to relax. Instead of letting that thought spiral, you ask yourself, is it really true that I'll never relax? Or am I just stuck in this thought pattern right now?
Just that simple question creates a little space in your mind, a pause, right?
Exactly. And that pause can be enough to break the cycle of negative thinking.
Interesting. Our source even suggests a little experiment. Listener, close your eyes for a sec and think of something that's been bugging you lately.
Yeah.
Now ask yourself, is this really true? See how your mind tries to cling to the original thought, but how its power starts to fade when you challenge it.
That's because those negative thoughts, they feed off of our belief. When we start questioning them, they lose their grip on us.
So over time, this technique can really change how we interact with our thoughts, right?
For sure. You go from being like a passive observer of your thoughts to becoming more of an active participant. Thoughts will still come and go, but they won't have the same power over you.
You know, this reminds me of all those spiritual teachings about how thoughts only have power if we believe them. The inversive question is a practical way to see through that illusion and take back control.
Totally. Okay, ready for the third technique?
Hit me with it.
It's called attention to internal sound, and it might sound a little out there, but it's really cool.
Okay, attention to internal sound. I'm intrigued.
So the secret here is that you don't have to fight your thoughts to quiet your mind. You can simply shift your attention to something more subtle, this internal sound.
What exactly is this internal sound?
Imagine like a faint buzzing or vibration inside your head, something you can only really notice when things are quiet. It's not an external sound. It seems to come from within your body.
Interesting. Some traditions actually call this the primordial sound, and they say it's always there, but it's usually drowned out by all the mental noise.
Exactly. So one of the sources suggests this exercise. Close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and gently focus your attention inward, trying to sense this internal sound. Don't try to force it or analyze it. Just observe it.
So you're basically tuning in to a different frequency.
Exactly. And what's cool is that when you do this, your mind naturally becomes quieter. By shifting your attention away from your thoughts, you diminish their power.
And the material mentions that experienced meditators use this technique to reach these really deep states of silence and awareness.
It's pretty powerful stuff. So, listener, try setting aside a few minutes each day to practice this. Whenever your mind feels busy, just stop and listen inward. The more you do it, the easier it becomes to access that inner stillness.
Okay, so we've learned about 3 powerful techniques for calming the mental noise. Conscious breathing, using our breath to calm our minds. The inversive question, learning to challenge our thoughts, and attention to internal sound, shifting our focus to something deeper.
Now remember, these aren't just one-off exercises. You can use them anytime, anywhere. Over time, that inner silence will become more and more accessible, almost like it was always there, just waiting to be discovered.
One of our sources asks us to imagine how our lives would change if our minds were like a calm lake instead of a stormy sea. How would it affect our decisions, our energy, our connection to ourselves? It's really something to think about.
And the final thought in our material is this. Real growth isn't about adding more to our lives. It's about letting go of what's weighing us down, what's blocking our natural peace.
So listener, we challenge you to choose one of these techniques and give it a try today. Maybe do some conscious breathing before bed, use the inversive question next time you're worried, or just take a few minutes to listen for that internal sound. Let us know how it goes.
And remember, as one of the sources puts it, silence isn't emptiness, it's fullness. When the mind quiets, awareness blossoms. And it's in that awareness that you can truly discover who you are.
That's a great point to end on. And as a final thought, consider this. What parts of your daily life are you now realizing are driven by this mental noise? And what might change if you could quiet that noise?
It's a journey worth taking, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Until next time.